Picture this. A man stands on a stage. Thousands of people are screaming his name. The lights are blinding. The music is thundering. And he is, without question, the greatest country music voice of his generation. Then one day, it's all gone. Not slowly, not gently. Gone in an instant. Like someone reached into his chest and took everything that made him him. That's Randy Travis. And if you think you already know his story, I promise you, you don't. Because what the headlines told you, that was the cleaned-up version. The version they wanted you to see. The real story, the one his closest friends still whisper about, is something else entirely. At 66 years old, Randy Travis has lived more lifetimes than most people could survive. He's touched the bottom of the bottle. He's held on to love that nearly destroyed him. He's stared at death, not once, not twice, but in a way so brutal that the doctors in that hospital room genuinely didn't think he'd make it through the night. And here's the part that will shake you. He did make it, but the man who walked out of that hospital was not the same man who walked in. So who is Randy Travis, really? What did the world miss? What did he sacrifice? And what is the heartbreaking truth that nobody, until now, has been willing to fully tell? Stay with me, because this story is unlike anything you've ever heard. Randy Travis didn't come from glamour. He didn't come from money. He didn't come from a family that believed in him. He came from Marshville, North Carolina, a small, quiet, dusty kind of town where dreams didn't get much encouragement, where hard work was expected and softness was weakness. His father, Harold Trawick, was a complicated man, tough, demanding, the kind of dad who didn't hand out praise lightly. Randy, born Randy Bruce Trawick in 1959, grew up in a house where music was both an escape and a lifeline. He was one of 6 kids, and from the very beginning, something was different about him. His voice, even as a boy, it had a depth to it, a gravity, like it carried something older than his years. But talent alone didn't keep him out of trouble. By his early teens, Randy was already spiraling. Alcohol, run-ins with the law, arrests. His parents didn't know what to do with him. The community didn't know what to do with him. There were people, real people who knew him then, who quietly wrote him off, said he'd end up in prison or worse. And here's where the story takes its first shocking turn. A woman named Lib Hatcher changed everything. She was the manager of a club where a teenage Randy was performing. She saw something in him that nobody else was willing to see. She took a chance. A massive, controversial, life-altering chance. And decided to manage him. To fight for him. To believe in him when literally no one else did. But their relationship, it was complicated. Deeply complicated. And it would follow Randy for decades, through the highest peaks of his career and the most devastating valleys of his personal life. What happened between Randy Travis and the woman who saved him? And why did it eventually become one of the most talked about and misunderstood relationships in country music history? That's just the beginning. Because Randy's story doesn't just have one twist, it has many. And they get darker before they get lighter. Let's go back to the beginning. Really back. Randy Travis grew up in a household where discipline came first, and affection came second, if it came at all. His father, Harold, was a man who worked with his hands, believed in toughness, and expected his sons to follow the rules. Randy did not follow the rules. He started drinking young, started getting into trouble young. By the time he was a teenager, he had multiple arrests on his record: breaking and entering, possession. The kind of charges that follow a kid for life. At one point, the judge gave his father a choice: Send the boy somewhere he can be supervised. Or Randy goes to jail. Harold chose to send him to the club, Lib Hatcher's Club. And that decision, that one almost accidental decision, redirected the entire course of country music history. Because the moment Lib heard Randy sing, she knew. She didn't just think he was talented, she knew he was something rare, something the world had never quite heard before. She became his manager, his protector, his biggest advocate. She moved him into her home, helped him get clean, helped him focus. She pushed him toward Nashville with a ferocity that people around them found strange, even unsettling. And Nashville kept saying no. You have to understand how brutal those rejection years were. Randy Travis, a man who would go on to sell over 25 million records, was turned down repeatedly. Told his style was too old-fashioned, too traditional. That country music had moved on from the kind of heartfelt, classic sound he carried in his voice. He performed under fake names just to get gigs. He worked as a cook at the club. He cleaned up after other people's parties and then went home to practice his songs in the dark. He was invisible, and he kept going anyway. What fuels a man like that? What keeps someone moving forward when every door keeps slamming in their face? We're about to find out, because when Randy finally broke through, the explosion was unlike anything Nashville had ever seen. 1986 changed everything. Randy Travis released Storms of Life, his debut album, and the country music world didn't just respond, it erupted. The album went platinum, then multi-platinum. It sold over 4 million copies. Critics, who had spent years dismissing traditional country, suddenly couldn't write fast enough about this voice, this warm, deep, unmistakable voice that felt like it had arrived from another era. He wasn't just successful, he was a phenomenon. Awards started piling up. CMA Awards, ACM Awards, Grammys. He won Album of the Year, Male Vocalist of the Year, over and over again. For a stretch in the late 80s and early 90s, Randy Travis was quite simply the biggest name in country music. Full stop. Songs like Forever and Ever, Amen became anthems. Not just country anthems, American anthems. The kind of song you hear at weddings, at funerals, on late-night drives when you're thinking about someone you love. And through all of it, the tours, the awards, the sold-out arenas, Lib was there, managing everything, controlling everything. Their relationship had evolved. In 1991, they got married, and the world raised its eyebrows because Lib was significantly older than Randy, and people had questions. But Randy didn't care what people thought. He said Lib saved his life, and he meant it literally. Yet behind the glittering surface of success, something was quietly unraveling. Something that fame and money and platinum records couldn't fix. Because Randy Travis was still fighting his demons. He'd just gotten better at hiding them. And the hiding? It was about to become impossible. Success has a way of masking pain. For a while, Randy Travis had everything the world said you were supposed to want. Fame, money, a legendary career, a woman who believed in him when no one else did. But the alcohol never truly left. It stayed in the shadows, waiting. And the pressure of being Randy Travis, of being this symbol of traditional country music, of being this standard that everyone measured themselves against, it was suffocating. People who worked close to him during this era describe a man who was warm and generous in public and quietly tormented in private. A man who carried something heavy that he couldn't put down and couldn't talk about. His marriage to Lib was also showing strain. What had begun as a profound, complicated, Deeply personal bond had become something else under the weight of years and fame and the strange dynamics of a relationship that the public never fully understood. In the early 2000s, Randy's commercial success began to slow. The music industry was changing. Country music was changing. The sound that had made him a legend was no longer what the radio wanted. And when the hits slow down, everything else gets louder. The drinking escalated. There were stories, whispers. People in the industry knew something was wrong long before the public did. Then, in 2010, Randy and Lib divorced. After nearly 2 decades of marriage, after everything they'd built and survived together, it was a quiet devastation. And Randy was not okay. But nobody, not even the people closest to him, was prepared for what came next. February 2012. Randy Travis was arrested in Texas, found by the side of the road after a single-car accident. He was naked, intoxicated. He reportedly threatened the officers at the scene. The video and the reports went everywhere. Instantly. It was brutal. It was humiliating. And for millions of fans who had grown up loving this man, it was heartbreaking. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't a tabloid story. This was real, documented, undeniable. And Randy Travis had nowhere to hide. He issued an apology. He sought treatment. And for a moment, just a moment, it seemed like maybe this was rock bottom. Maybe this was the crisis that finally forced everything to the surface. But the universe wasn't done with him yet, because 14 months later came something so catastrophic that the 2012 arrest suddenly seemed small in comparison. July 2013. Randy Travis suffered a massive stroke, a viral cardiomyopathy that attacked his heart and sent blood clots to his brain. He was rushed to the hospital in an emergency. And when he arrived, the situation was so severe that doctors began preparing his family for the possibility that he would not survive. He was placed in a medically induced coma. Emergency brain surgery was performed to relieve the pressure and swelling. The man who had sung forever and ever, Amen to millions of people, was now fighting, minute by minute, just to stay alive. And the question on everyone's lips, in Nashville, across the country music world, across America, was the same devastating question. Is Randy Travis going to make it? He made it, but just barely. When Randy Travis came out of the coma, the damage was profound. The stroke had affected the parts of his brain that controlled speech and movement. The man with one of the most recognized voices in American music history could barely speak. He had to relearn basic functions: walking, talking, processing language, things the rest of us do without thinking. Randy had to fight for every single one of them. His rehabilitation was long, grueling, and largely private. He didn't want cameras. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to work, to push, to get back something, anything, of the life he'd had before. And here's what the public didn't see. Here's the part that rarely gets told. During this incredibly dark and painful season, a woman named Mary Buger, who would later become his wife, stood by him, loved him through the chaos, helped him navigate a recovery that most people would have given up on. She wasn't with him for the fame. The fame was largely gone. She wasn't with him for the money. She was with him because she loved him. Randy, the man underneath everything. They married in 2015. And people who know them say it's the most genuine, peaceful relationship Randy has ever had. But even with love, even with support, even with the miracle of surviving what should have killed him, the music remained out of reach. Or so everyone thought. Because one moment, one unrepeatable, stunning moment, was still coming. And when it arrived, It brought an entire arena to its feet and reduced thousands of people to tears. What happened next will give you chills. At the 2016 CMA Awards, Randy Travis walked onto that stage, slowly, with effort. The stroke had taken so much from him physically, but he stood there, in front of the entire country music world, and he sang. His voice was different. The stroke had changed it, but the soul in it, that ineffable, heartbreaking, real human soul, was completely intact. The audience didn't just applaud, they stood immediately. They wept openly. Artists who had grown up idolizing him were seen crying in their seats, because what they were witnessing wasn't just a performance, it was a resurrection. Randy Travis, the man the doctors weren't sure would survive, was standing on that stage, singing, living proof that the human spirit is more stubborn and more powerful than any stroke, any addiction, any heartbreak. The moment became legendary. Instantly. People still talk about it today as one of the most emotional moments in CMA history. But let's be honest about something. Because this story deserves honesty. The stroke took a great deal from Randy Travis, and living with that loss, day after day, is something very few people truly understand. His speaking voice remains affected. His mobility is limited. He works with therapists regularly. The recovery is ongoing, not complete. There are days, people close to him say, when the weight of what was lost is simply heavy. When a man who once filled arenas with the power of his voice sits quietly and navigates a world that looks very different from the one he used to inhabit. That's not a failure. That's human. That's real. And it's important to say it out loud because we do these people a disservice when we only tell the triumphant part of the story and skip the hard daily truth. Randy Travis is brave, and bravery isn't the absence of loss. It's continuing anyway. Here's what the stroke couldn't touch, what no amount of hardship could erase. The music. Forever and ever. Amen. 3 wooden crosses. On the other hand, digging up bones. Songs that are woven into the fabric of American life. Songs that have played at weddings and funerals and road trips and quiet kitchen mornings for nearly 4 decades. Randy Travis didn't just make country music records. He saved country music at a moment when the industry had nearly drifted away from its roots entirely. He reminded an entire generation, and then the next one, what the genre was supposed to feel like. Artists from Garth Brooks to Carrie Underwood have cited him as a defining influence. The man's fingerprints are on virtually every major country act that followed him. That legacy? Untouchable. Forever. At 66, Randy Travis lives a quieter life, and by most accounts, a happier one. He spends time with Mary. He engages with fans when he can. He accepts honors and recognition with the humility that has always defined him. He recently received the Medal of Honor from the Country Music Hall of Fame, the genre's highest recognition. People who have spent time with him recently describe someone who is at peace, not because everything is perfect, but because he's earned that peace, fought for it, survived for it. He is still Randy Travis, still the man with the voice that moved millions, still the boy from Marshville who nobody believed in, still the person who fell hard and got back up and fell again and got back up again every single time. That's not a small thing. That's everything. So, what is the heartbreaking truth about Randy Travis? It's this. The greatest gifts and the deepest wounds often come from the same place. His sensitivity, the thing that made his voice so devastating, so real, so human, was also the thing that made the alcohol feel necessary, made the pain so hard to carry. He was never just a country music star. He was a deeply feeling human being who happened to have an extraordinary voice and who paid an extraordinary price for the life he lived. And at 66, with everything he's been through, the arrests, the stroke, the losses, the rebirths, he is still here, still smiling in photos, still moved by music, still loved. The heartbreaking truth about Randy Travis is also the most beautiful truth. He survived, and the world is better for it. If this story moved you, if Randy Travis has ever been part of your life through his music, drop a comment below and tell me your favorite song of his. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. Because we tell these stories the way they deserve to be told.